So I've been holding on to this for a while, but I had this alien invasion dream a couple of days ago. But I've had alien invasion dreams before, and so. But what was interesting about this dream that I found online was that almost it had some identical traits to the dream that I had, and I've been holding on. I've been wanting to do this video to cover this guy's dream and what he posted. I also posted links, but let's get into it. I'm gonna play. I'm gonna go through with his dream since it was similar to my dream, and then I'll get some commentary on that. Stand by.
But I saw this thread and figured, why not post? I had 3 different events. Might have to post them separately. Might not post all of them if I get tired of typing. I suck at green text, by the way, so I'll just type it out. The first event I had was when I was a kiddo, although I didn't realize it until I was older, but my parents and school teachers did. Before 9/11, I was always drawing cities, and would put twin towers in them, burning. Although, I was like 4 at the time, and I have never even seen them or heard of them. I did this in my agenda notebook, on the desk, on a paper at home, all the time. Nobody thought anything of it until 9/11 happened, and then everyone was very quiet around me. They would try to be really nice to me. They wanted me to draw something other than burning towers. They never told me what. They just told me to draw whatever I wanted. I don't really remember much beyond that though. Fast forward about a decade and a half. I find my old agenda notebooks in the closet and see 9/11 scribbles all over them. Periods far before 9/11. I finally went and asked my parents about it, and they were extremely squirmy on the subject. But finally, they had told me that I was drawing all this before 9/11, and that they were hoping I would just forget. They had told me that my mother apparently predicted a bunch of plane crashes between the 60s and the 80s, to excruciating detail, down to the exact locations they would hit. Although she lost this ability when I was born. Apparently my grandmother and my great-grandmother had this ability, to varying degrees. It's really made me question a lot of stuff ever since though, to the extent that I seriously worry about my own thoughts. Story 2. Significantly after this, but before rediscovering this weird life event of mine, I had another incident take place. I had the day off and had gone to sleep, although once I had awoken from my dream, I didn't realize I was asleep. I lived out day after day, week after week, month after month in this dream that I didn't even know was a dream. However, it was not a good one. Eventually, at some distant future point, the space station was deorbited. I do not know if this was intentional, or if it was orbital decay.
What's interesting about that? What's interesting about what he said there was a remote viewer by the name of Ed Dames, also posting links, who predicted that the space station would fall out of the sky. Right. So, and I'll post the links for that prediction from Ed Dames. So this guy said in his precog dream he saw the space station fall out of the sky. Now, what Ed Dames said was that he saw they did a remote viewing where the space station fell out the sky, and right after that, the Earth got hit with a CME. Now, I also had a dream that I never dreamt about the space station, but what I dreamt was that there was some type of CME, and then when it happened, it fried people's brains like a microwave, right? And that people, were burned by the sun. They were burned by this, that, and also it zombified people's brains. So the radiation from the sun caused people to be zombified, and being a zombified, very hostile state, violent state, and so that happened around the time of a CME. But but anyway, what he said correlated with a remote viewing from Ed Dames that some space stations and satellites would be knocked out of the sky. So I'm gonna continue. Let's continue on.
and not just one of the Chinese stations. However, shortly after this, there was a limited nuclear exchange, in which 36 nuclear weapons were detonated in the Texas Gulf region. I am unsure what happened to the rest of the country though, but I imagine it was catastrophic. Services never came back. Shortly after this came airstrikes. No idea from who. It honestly looked like some variant of the Su-30 Russian plane. Only a few, however, before those two eventually stopped. About a week after this, it got horrific. There were a bunch of anvil clouds that seemingly developed out of nowhere, and large spacecraft were seen in them. Not emerging Independence Day style, but as if the cloud itself was some kind of portal, and these ships were sort of loitering halfway in/out of the portal. The ships were large, angular, brick-shaped, but had no real texture to speak of. They were sort of solid stone/slate gray, and just sat there. We never saw anything come out of them. All we remembered were screams from everywhere, and these monsters that would peel the skin from children and parents and wear their skins, and they were capable of perfectly imitating the voices of the people.
So in the dream I had, I believe that dream is actually posted to this page. I'll link that as well. The same thing happened, right? So this guy's dream and my dream is identical. You can look at the dates, but I had that dream a long time ago, and way before this, I think this dream was ever posted about these aliens, this hostile alien invasion, and these so-called Skinwalker aliens that would peel the skin off of people's face and head, like scalping them, and then put the skin on their face, and then terrorize people, as for fun, and terror. So he actually had the same dream, which I thought was fascinating, that two people would have such a graphic, horrible account, alien invasion account, right? Because I don't know this guy, and I didn't copy his dream. So, anyway, let's continue.
Out of them, all we remembered were screams from everywhere, and these monsters that would peel the skin from children and parents and wear their skins, and they were capable of perfectly imitating the voices of the people whose skins they took. They did this to lure people out of their hiding spots and take them. Killing yourself to escape would not work. They could reanimate the dead and keep you on some sort of life support for the sake of experimentation. I don't know why or how, but somehow I knew if they took you, that you were theirs forever. There was no escape. However, they also had large facilities on the earth. They looked like normal warehouses, but the ones who wore people's skins were inside of these. They would liquefy humans in here and keep them in devices that looked similar to dryers, and each liquefied human was kept in their own. And we had a hand scanner we could use to find where our person's remains were, so we could steal them so that they couldn't reconstitute their remains and make them suffer. Somehow, we could reconstruct the entire person back to what they were with this liquid. However, the ones who wore the people's skins had these large pools ringed with symbols that looked similar to the Zoroastrian dogmas. I don't know the spelling. And they would fill these pools with the people's liquefied remains and bathe in them. And their children will bathe in them and drink them. And they will try throwing people in, and if you fell in, then you were one of them. This went on until most of the human race had been wiped out. I do not remember most of what happened, as this was a single dream spanning almost 72 years. Eventually, though, the aircraft were destroyed. Most of the life on Earth was destroyed. It had become a large desert. I remember there were still alligators, though, and whatever had transpired had killed the sun. It was slowly dying, as if perhaps they had siphoned energy from it to escape. I don't know if anyone intervened on our behalf, but I think someone did. But I remember I was walking with a girl in a blue dress. She was my wife. I don't have a wife in the real life, mind you. But anyways, me and my wife in the blue dress were walking down the road. There was a small ditch on the left side, with a few alligators in it, and a line of trees on the other following the ditch. We were walking home, and there were bits of these spacecraft everywhere. The sun looked like it was setting, but it wasn't. Damaged or something, as I stated in the previous post. But we finally got home. It was getting close to nighttime. I then remember her whispering to me very quietly, "We need to be quiet and turn all the lights off, or they'll see us." We did this, and saw lights on the horizon slowly blinking out one by one by one. I don't know if the lights were really close enough or not, but I could swear I heard distant screaming, like there was a reason the lights were going off. As though, even in our victory, we were still being hunted. I do not know what our enemy was. We all just called it them. I woke up after this, and realized I had been asleep for almost 14 hours. Normally, I sleep 7.5, and that this 72 years of mine had all been a complex fabrication of my imagination. However, every single event leading up to this happened so far again. Every single one. And I fear that either I am once again in a long dream, or that it has become reality this time, and we're about to see tribulation. All of this sounds ridiculous to believe whatsoever, I know. I still have 2 other stories about similar events to this if you're interested. A Russian invasion of Crimea, Iraq falling apart and returning to a fractured state, Syrian intervention. The next things to come along are that the rest of the Middle East falls apart. Not just what we're already seeing, but Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, Iran, pretty much everything except Israel. Eventually, a space station, no idea which one, or when/how, will deorbit. A war between Russia and the US is going to kick off. It's inevitable. Russia is going to invade through Mexico. The red line is how far into the US they end up invading, due to aid from the native Mexican population inhabiting an insurrection due to increased nationalism, and a weak quasi-breakup of the US following a civil war. The green circle is a flashpoint, where Russia didn't invade at first. They stayed on one side of the ship channel until finally attempting to cross it. And then, that's when things go nuclear. 36 nuclear weapons are exchanged in and around the green circle. I have no idea how many are exchanged elsewhere, as that is the last time we had internet or TV ever again. Many other electronic devices and vehicles stopped working. Many other electronic devices and vehicles still worked, however. Mostly older ones. Though, and for some reason, as I said, the handheld scanner for finding humans worked. Russia does a few more strikes with aircraft that I assume were hardened against initial nuclear exchange, although they were very quickly stopped, as I imagine they likely ran out of fuel, or some other reason. Very soon after this is when the ships arrived. They're able to reanimate bodies if they're fresh.
And so what he said kind of coincides with what I said in my dream. He said there were he had some very good details. I like this guy, his timeline. I like his detail. He thinks these are precognitive dreams, and like I said, I found it interesting because we both saw these beings called Skinwalkers who invaded, terrorized, kidnapped humans, and attacked the Earth. But he said, and we both kind of said this. Well, it's similar. I said that before a total invasion by Russia, an attack by Russia, you would see the alien invasion. He said that right after the attack by Russia, right, and the United States, which would take place in the West and the Southwest, the attacks by Russia, China, etc., would take place via the West and the Southwest. Right after those started, then you would see the alien invasion. So, I mean, I guess you could, say, well, maybe it's somewhere in the, somewhere in the middle or somewhere around that time. Um, you can expect it, whether right before or right after. But you can use that as kind of a checkpoint, right? To say, okay, we know we're getting close, right, to an alien invasion, right? One, and then two is probably going to be totally hostile. And people are saying that, oh, it's going to be a false flag. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I mean, I would bet my money on they're just watching everything right now. They would have to be watching if these precognitive dreams are correct. The group that he's talking about is watching everything right now, already here, and basically already lined up. How do we know that? Well, we know that because one, the dream I had, and two, the dream he had. Both of them coincide with Russia, war, World War III, et cetera, and the United States, things like that, Civil War. All these things are upon us, right? So this guy, to me, is legit, right? I find him to be legitimate and have a lot of good material. So let's continue.
Although they were very quickly stopped, as I imagine they likely ran out of fuel or some other reason. Very soon after this is when the ships arrived. They are able to reanimate bodies if they're fresh. I don't think that they can if they've been dead for a long time or in the ground for a while, but I think there's about a 1 week window that they still can. I wouldn't advise killing yourself though, obviously. I'm not sure what they look like. They were always wearing human skin when I saw them, although it was sort of loose, and they would walk upright like humans, but they could run faster than any human, and even faster on all fours. Even the child-sized ones were stronger than any human. There was no way to kill any of them either. I don't mean that figuratively. I mean literally. In my entire time, I had not seen a single one of them die. They had a weird sort of glow to them though, like you could see under the skin, where they had been glowing machinery or augmented body parts, or something that were part of them. And some of them, the heads didn't look right, because you could see the human skin on them, but you could see 4 or 5 glowing white eyes under the skin. The only way to survive was either run, which wasn't advisable, because they will catch you on foot, or hide until they leave. But even that wasn't so good, because they were extremely quiet and could just sit there and wait outside of doors, silently, until people opened them, and then they could take them. The only people who really survived were the ones who had gone to the middle of nowhere when the nuclear war went down, or those who had basically given away their own bait to lure them away while they escaped. I would not doubt for a second that by the end of the 72 years, that there were probably only a few 100,000 people left on Earth, if even that many. My scanner isn't working, so I can't upload anything I've drawn about this. I'm pretty sure the hand scanner was theirs, but it was based off of human technology, or maybe human technology based off of it. I'm not sure. Most of their other stuff was absolutely useless to us. There was no way for us to use it. Somehow, with these portals being open, they were siphoning some kind of energy that powered the ships completely different from electricity. Although, I'm not sure they even needed the portals TBH. Without the energy, the pieces of the ships were literally nothing more than useless common metals/alloys. They somehow underwent some kind of rapid breakdown without the energy source. I don't remember how the portals closed or how the ships were destroyed. I was in the middle of nowhere at the time. I'm almost certain, 90% anyways, that there's some kind of scavenger civilization. They wait for civilization to wipe themselves out, and then it's like it's some kind of cosmic law that for the most part everyone is allowed to pick through the remains, which I think is what happened after the nuclear war. And I think someone didn't like this and kicked them out. But not before they damaged the sun as a final fuck you to humans and whomever helped them. As I said though, it was not fun. There was something left behind. I don't think it was them though. I think it was something else. It was something in the long dark that would eat people. They didn't glow and I never saw them. I just knew to never show any light at nighttime ever. And when it was night, we slept underground. We slept underground, under the house, in case the things in the dark came inside and found us. I think they were little more than animals. Maybe something they left behind. But I don't know. I don't even know if the long dark was permanent or not. As that's when the dream ended. The sun was dying, and it was also possible, in addition to this, that it was nighttime. As it was that the sun had died, or that they had moved an object in front of it to obscure the earth, or maybe it was residual atmospheric debris from the nuclear war and everything else that had happened. I know for a fact that something did happen to the sun though, so it could have been a compound mixture of those events. In addition to this, I remember one time during the dream, a different occasion, where I had gotten onto one of these ships somehow, and I saw what happened to the people who were taken. They were intubated in their back, and varying body parts. Not too much unlike the Matrix. However, there were far more cables and other mechanisms that I have no idea what they were. But if you had died, then these devices let them bring you back, and most of the people attached to these devices were spliced open with organs showing or missing entire pieces of their body. There were a few people who weren't much more than heads, with cores taken out of the bottom, but they were still intubated and kept alive, and mostly just screamed. The inside of the ships was the same slate grayish color, but there was colors made of energy, perhaps as electronics interface and panels of some sort, but probably not. It wasn't pretty colors though, just varying shades of white, yellow, light bluish. It was very basic too, none of that H.R. Geiger alien style. The ships were very utilitarian in design on the inside. Everything served a purpose, and only that purpose. No decoration whatsoever. In addition to all of this, I say Mexican uprising. What I mean is that Mexico aligned with Russia, and most of South America / Central America. So this, coupled with Russia, allowed for a fairly robust invasion. The US had been weakened substantially already due to the internal civil war. Whether it was related to this election or not, I'm not sure. Under normal circumstances, I doubt they would be able to pull off an invasion though, so we must have been fairly weakened. I know the White House and the Capitol was taken by the People's Revolutionary Force. Shit name, but that's what they called themselves, or had grown to be called anyways. So for the most part, the government had already been decapitated before the invasion. In addition to all of this, again, the addition and subsequent nuclear exchange had all come about very quickly. I was out in the backyard with my mother, putting white Christmas lights on the backyard and patio lights. I don't think it was near Christmas though. We had literally walked inside and my dad was laying on the floor watching TV, and Dad said, "Well..."
So I said the same, in the dream I just had, I said the same thing. I said the alien invasion took place in the winter. It was cold. It was fall or winter. He said the same thing. We were putting up Christmas lights, but it wasn't Christmas time. You see? So it was cold, we was putting up Christmas lights, but it was prior to, meaning this happened like maybe in the fall, early fall, something like that, right? Early or late fall, as opposed to around, later in. And so we kind of, a lot of what he said kind of ties into the dreams I had. So let's continue.
I guess we just started World War III. And not 20 seconds after, the first flash went off, outside, near what would probably be the Pasadena area of Houston, followed by a large area of petrochemical plants on the other side of the ship channel. They looked to be fairly low yield, 10 to 20 kiloton range. as though they were specifically trying to target smaller areas, but I don't know. We got the shockwave where I was, and our windows were blown out, but the building was still intact, with little damage. I had never said they were glowing green under their skin. I don't think I did. They were glowing the same as their ships, some sort of white/yellowish bluish color. I don't know the word for it, but it wasn't an earth color. I speculate on the machinery, but there were bits and pieces poking out through the skin, and the holes in the skin, due to some people's skin going neurotic. The machinery under the skin looked like it was very similar, stone gray, as their ships. The skin was pretty contorted on their bodies, in some cases though. As I said, multiple eyes covered by the skin, sometimes, or others where the skin didn't exactly fit them right. They still had mouths though, but I don't think it was for eating. I think perhaps it helped them grab onto people, or for the express purpose of killing or subduing them. I don't even know if they were technically alive, or if they themselves were just biological machines. Some of them really seemed like they wanted the skin as trophies more than anything though. They collected it, and some of them were wearing multiple layers. And as I said, I have no idea whatsoever as to why they would liquefy the people and put them in the dryer machines in the warehouse. Surely they had some purpose, but I didn't know. It could just be as simple as storage, or perhaps some religious purpose of theirs. They seem to have some interest in Zoroastrianism, as I said. A civilization could fight them though. From my understanding, they're possibly the first intelligent species ever throughout all dimensions, or one of our first anyways. I can't imagine anyone from this planet could even fathom a way of fighting them. It would have had to have been someone else out there, on their technological level. I have no idea what a Skinwalker is. Can you give me a link? The ship in that video looks nothing like their ships. Sorry. They didn't have digital displays like that. It was some kind of strange form of hard light, formed out of energy or something. But it had solid pieces that it looked like if they had hard light turned off, then they would all fall to the floor, but they didn't. They sat there in a static position. The ship had no windows whatsoever, either. And any writing anywhere was in the same light/energy as the consoles. The best I can describe it is that the ship was as much amalgamation of amassed technologies as one can imagine. There was stuff that just simply looked out of place or something. Like that, rudimentary tools along with energy.
So I'll stop it right there just for the sake of time. And there's a few more minutes of some information that he goes over from his dream. But I think that's the gist of it. I thought it was really interesting, so I wanted to cover it. I thought it was extremely detailed. He talked about Russia, United States, Civil War. He covered the Skinwalkers, same thing. And the reason I covered, like I said, I covered this dream was because I had a similar dream. Right? Well, there's similarities in his dream, like the aliens who peeled the skin off the humans and they were called Skinwalkers. We both called them Skinwalkers. We both had the same dream. So I thought that was about these creatures. One thing I like about him, this dream was extremely detailed. I mean, like, he had places where there were nuclear strikes occurred. He talked about the Civil War. He talked about, World War III, things like that. So I decided to cover his dream and kind of connect the dots between his dreams and my dreams. But I think I'll stop and leave it right there. That's all I got on that.